The girl had 3 days left. 3 days before her next chemo session, and she was still $800 short. Her hands shook as she taped another original art $20 sign to the folding table she'd set up outside the Santa Monica Pier. Most people walked past without even glancing at her watercolor paintings of ocean scenes and city skylines. But then a man in a fedora and dark sunglasses stopped. Building suspense. Maya Chen had been battling leukemia for 8 months. At 19, she should have been starting her sophomore year at UCLA. Instead, she was fighting for her life while her family's savings evaporated faster than morning fog. Her parents worked double shifts. Her mother cleaning office buildings at night, her father delivering food during the day. They'd already sold their car, moved to a smaller apartment, and borrowed money from relatives who barely had any to spare. "We'll figure it out, sweetheart," her mom kept saying. But Maya saw the fear behind her tired eyes. That's when Maya decided to sell her art. She'd been painting since middle school, mostly as a way to escape when the world felt too heavy. During her first rounds of chemo, when the nausea was unbearable and her hair started falling out in clumps, painting became her lifeline. The nurses would find her in the hospital common room at 3 a.m., brush in hand, creating worlds where cancer didn't exist. The mystery deepens. Now sitting behind her makeshift art booth on the pier, Maya watched the mysterious man in the fedora examine her paintings. He moved slowly, deliberately, picking up each piece and studying it like he was in a museum. "These are remarkable," he said, his voice carrying a familiar cadence that made Maya's heart skip. But that was impossible. Her mind was playing tricks on her. The man lifted a painting of a lighthouse during a storm, Maya's favorite piece. She'd painted it during her darkest moment when the doctors weren't sure the treatment was working. The lighthouse stood defiant against crashing waves, its light cutting through the darkness. "How much for this one?" he asked. $20, Maya whispered. The stranger reached into his jacket pocket. Maya expected him to pull out a $20 bill. Instead, he produced something that made her gasp. A checkbook. Suspense intensifies. "What's your name, love?" he asked, pen hovering over the check. "Maya. Maya Chen. And this art show, what's it really for?" Maya's cheeks burned. She'd been hoping people wouldn't ask. I need money for treatment. Cancer treatment." The man nodded slowly, then bent over the checkbook. Maya watched in confusion as he wrote, and wrote, and wrote. The amount seemed to have a lot of numbers. "Sir, I think you made a mistake," Maya said as he tore off the check. "You wrote, no mistake." Maya looked at the check, then looked again, then felt the world tilt sideways. The check was made out to Maya Chen for $50,000. But that wasn't the shocking part. The shocking part was the signature at the bottom. The revelation builds. "Johnny Depp," Maya whispered, her voice barely audible over the sound of crashing waves. The man smiled and slowly removed his sunglasses. Those unmistakable dark eyes, the sharp cheekbones, the slight smirk she'd seen in 100 movies. "But why?" Maya stammered. "You don't even know me." Johnny sat down on the small plastic chair across from her, looking oddly elegant despite the humble setting. "You know, I was walking to meet some friends for lunch. But I saw you here, and something about your art." He gestured to the lighthouse painting. "It reminded me of something my daughter said once." Maya waited, hardly breathing. "She told me that the most beautiful art comes from the deepest pain. That artists don't create, despite their struggles. They create because of them." He picked up the lighthouse painting again. "This lighthouse. It's you, isn't it? Standing strong in the storm." Tears began streaming down Maya's face. "I don't know what to say." "Don't say anything. Just promise me something. Anything. Promise me you'll keep painting. Even after you beat this thing. And you will beat this thing. Promise me you'll never stop creating." The twist deepens. But Johnny wasn't finished. He stood up and walked to the railing overlooking the beach, where a small crowd had begun to gather. People were starting to recognize him. Phones were coming out, but he ignored them all. "Maya," he called back to her. "What's your dream?" I mean beyond beating cancer. What do you want to do with your art? Maya wiped her eyes. I want to have a gallery show someday. I want people to see that beauty can come from darkness. That hope can exist even in the worst moments. Johnny pulled out his phone and made a call. Sarah, it's Johnny. I'm standing here with an incredibly talented young artist named Maya Chen. Yes, I'm serious. Can you clear some wall space next month? Maya's heart pounded as she listened to one side of the conversation. Perfect. Send me the details. He hung up and turned back to Maya. Do you know the Morrison Gallery in West Hollywood? Maya nodded mutely. It was one of the most prestigious galleries in LA. They want to see your portfolio. Turns out the owner is a friend of mine, and she trusts my judgment when it comes to recognizing raw talent. The emotional climax. The crowd around them had grown larger. People were filming, taking pictures, but Maya barely noticed. She was staring at the check in her hands. Enough money to cover not just her next treatment, but treatments for months to come. Why are you doing this? She asked again. Johnny sat back down, and for a moment the movie star facade dropped away. Maya saw something vulnerable in his eyes. Because 20 years ago I was broke and sleeping on a friend's couch. I had a guitar and a dream, and about $15 to my name. And a stranger believed in me when no one else would. He paused. That stranger changed my life. Now it's my turn to be that stranger for someone else. He stood up and gathered all of Maya's paintings from the table. I'm buying all of these, every single one. But the check you already gave me is for your medical bills. This, he pulled out another checkbook, is for your art. The second check was for $25,000. The revelation that changes everything. As Johnny signed the second check, Maya noticed something that made her gasp again. You're left-handed, she said. Yes, why? So am I. And I paint with my left hand, even though the chemo makes it shake sometimes. Johnny looked up from the check. Show me. Maya held up her left hand. It was trembling slightly, a side effect of her medication. Without hesitation, Johnny reached out and gently took her hand in both of his. You know what I see when I look at this hand? Maya shook her head. I see the hand that painted a lighthouse strong enough to guide ships through any storm. I see the hand that's going to create masterpieces that will outlive both of us. He smiled. A little shaking never stopped any great artist from creating great art. The final twist. But there was one more surprise. As Johnny prepared to leave, carrying Maya's paintings under his arm, he turned back one final time. Oh, and Maya, that gallery show we talked about. Yes, it's not just going to display your art. It's going to be a fundraiser for other young artists battling illness. We're going to call it Lighthouses in the Storm. Maya's legs nearly gave out. I mean you're not just getting your dream gallery show. You're going to help other people get theirs too. The crowd that had gathered burst into spontaneous applause. People were crying, laughing, filming everything. But Maya only had eyes for the man who had just changed her entire world. How do I ever thank you? She whispered. Johnny smiled that famous crooked smile. You thank me by beating cancer. You thank me by never giving up. And you thank me by proving that sometimes, the most beautiful lighthouses are built by people who've weathered the worst storms. The ending that leaves you thinking. 3 months later, Maya's doctors delivered the news she'd been praying for. She was in remission. 6 months after that, Lighthouses in the Storm opened at the Morrison Gallery. Maya's lighthouse painting, the one that had caught Johnny's attention that day, sold for $75,000. Every penny went to a fund for young artists facing medical challenges. Johnny attended the opening, but he stayed in the background, watching as Maya spoke to reporters and art collectors about her journey. At one point, their eyes met across the crowded gallery. He raised his glass in a silent toast. She raised hers back. Two strangers who had met for 5 minutes on a pier had created something that would help countless others for years to come. But here's the thing that will make you think. That wasn't the end of Johnny's kindness that day. As he was leaving the pier, carrying Maya's paintings, a homeless veteran noticed the small crowd and asked what was happening. When someone explained, the veteran shook his head sadly. "Must be nice to have movie star money," he muttered. Johnny overheard. He stopped, walked over to the veteran, and quietly handed him something. It was another check for $10,000. "Thank you for your service," Johnny said simply. The veteran stared at the check, then at Johnny, then back at the check. "Why?" he whispered. Johnny smiled the same smile he'd given Maya. "Because 20 years ago, I was broke and sleeping on a friend's couch." And that's when you realize, this wasn't just a story about one act of kindness. This was a story about how kindness multiplies. How one person's generosity can create ripples that spread farther than anyone ever imagines. Maya beat cancer and became a successful artist. The veteran used the money to get back on his feet, and now runs a non-profit for homeless veterans. The gallery show became an annual event that has raised over $2 million for young artists facing medical challenges. All because a man in a fedora stopped to look at paintings on a pier. All because he remembered what it felt like to need someone to believe in him. All because he understood that the most powerful thing you can give someone isn't money, it's hope. The final question that haunts you. So here's what I want you to think about as you scroll to the next video. When was the last time you stopped to really look at someone who needed help? When was the last time you asked yourself, what if I could be the stranger who changes someone's life? Because somewhere right now, there's a Maya selling art on a pier. There's a veteran who just needs someone to notice. There's a lighthouse waiting to be built in someone's storm. And maybe, just maybe, you're exactly the person who's supposed to stop and look. The question is, will you keep walking? Or will you be the plot twist in someone else's story?